Caryn sues Amy over a lasagna recipe. You heard that right. We're looking at what might be the most petty, vindictive, and absolutely shocking legal maneuver in the history of Little People Big World. We have received urgent information regarding a document that allegedly attempts to ban Amy Roloff from using her own last name on her new business venture. You will not believe the greedy demand Caryn Chandler has reportedly convinced Matt to make. They aren't just coming for Amy's money this time. They are coming for her memories, her history, and her identity. If you thought the farm negotiation was brutal, wait until you hear about the intellectual property war that is currently exploding behind the scenes. This is LPBW Update, and we are exposing the truth they don't want you to know. Let's get right into the heart of this storm. We are tracking a developing story that changes everything we thought we knew about the dynamic between Roloff Farms and Amy's new independent life. For months, we have watched Amy flourish. She has moved off the farm, she married Chris, and she has been building a brand that is entirely her own. The crown jewel of this new chapter is her announcement of the Roloff Family Cookbook, a project that fans have been begging for over the last decade. This wasn't just a collection of food. This was Amy's heart on a page. We're talking about recipes passed down for generations, the comfort food that raised 4 children, the meals that we watched her cook in that chaotic, loving kitchen for over 20 seasons. The launch began as a celebration. The initial buzz was undeniable. When Amy teased the cover art on social media, the response was overwhelming. Pre-orders reportedly skyrocketed within hours, crashing the website hosting the link. Fans were flooding the comment section, talking about how excited they were to finally make Amy's famous lasagna or her holiday berry cobbler. It was a massive win for Amy. For the first time, she wasn't Matt's ex-wife or the woman who lost the farm. She was a matriarch, an author, and an entrepreneur standing on her own 2 feet. The narrative was shifting, and the audience loved it. The engagement metrics were through the roof, and industry analysts, and let's be honest, anyone with eyes, could see that this cookbook was going to be a bestseller before it even hit the shelves. But while Amy was popping champagne with Chris and celebrating this massive achievement, a dark cloud was forming just a few miles away at the big house. This is where things get murky, and this is where our exclusive theory comes into play. According to insider reports and whispers from sources close to the production, the atmosphere at Roloff Farms was not celebratory. It was toxic. While the world was cheering for Amy, Caryn Chandler was reportedly fuming. You have to understand the timeline here. The farm has been facing scrutiny. There have been reports of struggling pumpkin seasons, issues with the rental property, and a general decline in the Roloff Farms' public image. Matt has been struggling to keep the revenue streams flowing as high as they used to be. Then they see Amy. They see the pre-order numbers. They see the love. And most importantly, they see the money. The theory we are investigating suggests that Caryn viewed this cookbook not as Amy's personal project, but as a theft of farm resources. It sounds insane, but follows the logic of a woman who has inserted herself into every aspect of the family business. The narrative being spun behind the gates of the farm was that Amy's popularity is inextricably linked to the show, and the show is inextricably linked to the farm. Therefore, in Caryn's eyes, Amy is capitalizing on a brand that Matt built. We have heard rumblings that Caryn sat Matt down for a business meeting that was really an intervention of greed. The argument was supposedly that the name Roloff is a trademark of the farm's corporate entity, but it goes deeper than just the name. This is where the lasagna lawsuit theory originates. The insider speculation is that Caryn convinced Matt that the specific recipes Amy is selling, the ones that became famous on the show, are technically intellectual property of Roloff Farms. The logic they are allegedly using is terrifyingly corporate. Because Amy was technically an employee of the farm and the production company during the years she cooked those meals on camera, those recipes are considered work products. Imagine the audacity. Imagine telling a mother that the dinner she cooked for her children, the recipe she learned from her own mother, belongs to a corporation because a camera happened to be filming her while she made it. But this is the twisted genius of the strategy we believe is being deployed. Caryn knows that Matt is obsessed with fairness and business. She knows exactly which buttons to push. We believe she framed this not as attacking Amy, but as protecting the asset. She likely told Matt, "The farm made those recipes famous, not Amy. Without the farm, nobody cares about that lasagna. We are losing money by not getting a cut." It is the ultimate manipulation. By framing Amy's success as a byproduct of Matt's empire, Caryn strips Amy of her agency and turns a personal memoir into a corporate dispute. And let's look at the financial motivation here. With the farm potentially not bringing in the cash flow it once did, and with the massive expenses of building the new dream home, Matt is likely feeling the pinch. A licensing fee from a best-selling book could be a significant chunk of change. We are talking about potentially demanding a percentage of every single book sold, just for the privilege of Amy using the name she has carried for 30 years. The tension is palpable. We've seen the clips, we've seen the side eyes, but this is warfare. This is an attempt to legally bind Amy to the farm forever, to say that she can never truly be free because even her signature dishes are owned by Matt Roloff. It is a level of control that borders on obsession. And the worst part? Matt reportedly listened. Sources suggest he didn't laugh this idea out of the room. Instead, he started looking at the contracts. He started looking at the old employment agreements from the early seasons of the show. The seed was planted. Caryn successfully convinced him that Amy was getting away with something, that she was profiting off their hard work. As the launch date approached, the silence from the farm was deafening. No congratulations, no social media posts supporting the mother of his children, just silence. That silence was the calm before the storm. While Amy was doing interviews and talking about how this book represented her legacy, the legal team at Roloff Farms was reportedly drafting a cease and desist letter that would shatter her world. They were preparing to argue that the Roloff family cookbook was a trademark infringement and a violation of intellectual property rights. This brings us to the edge of the cliff. Amy has no idea this is coming. She is living in the high of her success, completely unaware that the man she shared her life with, urged on by his new partner, is about to claim he owns the rights to her own kitchen. This isn't just about lasagna, it's about erasing Amy's contribution to the family history and rebranding it as a corporate asset. It is the ultimate act of erasure. And when that letter lands, it is going to ignite a fire that not even Chris Merrick can put out. This is the setup for a battle that goes beyond the courtroom. It's a battle for the soul of the family. The timeline of events supports this theory perfectly. Look at the sudden shift in Matt's demeanor in recent online posts. He seems stressed, focused on legacy and protection. These are code words. In the world of reality TV litigation, protecting the legacy usually means securing the bag. And Caryn is right there beside him, the architect of this new aggressive stance. We are seeing a shift from passive-aggressive comments to active legal aggression. We have to ask ourselves, why now? Why wait until the book is announced? Because that's when the leverage is highest. If they hit her with a lawsuit now, they know she has inventory printed. They know she has contracts with publishers. They know she can't just change the title or pull the book without losing a fortune. It is a calculated ambush designed to force a settlement. They don't necessarily want to go to court. They want a check. They want Amy to panic and sign over a percentage of her royalties to make the problem go away. It is a classic shakedown, allegedly orchestrated by Caryn and executed by Matt. But they forgot one thing. Amy Roloff has changed. The Amy of 10 years ago might have folded. She might have cried and given in just to keep the peace. But the Amy of today, the Amy who walked away from the farm and found love again, she isn't the same woman. And as we are about to see, when this legal threat hits, she doesn't crumble. But the initial shock is going to be devastating. We are receiving reports that the specific demands in the legal draft are humiliating. They allegedly want to review every recipe. They want to vet the anecdotes for disparaging remarks about the farm. They want to control the narrative of her book. The audacity of claiming ownership over family history is something that will alienate the fan base forever if this goes public. And that is exactly what we are doing. We are making it public. We are connecting the dots that they are trying to hide. This wasn't a coincidence. The timing was strategic. The motivation was financial. The villainy is off the charts. As we move into the next phase of this saga, keep in mind that this is largely based on the behavioral patterns we have observed for years, combined with leaked whispers from the production periphery. But ask yourself, does it sound like something Caryn would do? Does it sound like something Matt would agree to if he thought it was just business? The launch party is set, the invites are out, Amy is glowing. But the courier is already on the way. The document is signed. The war has been declared, even if the victim doesn't know it yet. We are going to break down exactly what was in that letter, the specific legal loophole they tried to exploit regarding corporate recipes, and the devastating moment Amy realized that her past was being weaponized against her future. This is the moment the Roloff family dynamic broke beyond repair. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday. It wasn't a personal letter, and it wasn't a note of congratulations. It was a thick, heavy packet sent via certified mail requiring a signature. According to witnesses near Amy's residence, the mood shifted instantly. One moment, Amy was planning her book tour schedule. The next, she was holding a document that threatened to dismantle her entire project. We have obtained details on the contents of this cease and desist letter, and the language used is nothing short of brutal. It didn't come from Matt personally. It came from the legal representatives of Roloff Farms and associated entities. But make no mistake, the fingerprints of the new regime were all over it. The demands were staggering. The letter allegedly claimed that the title Roloff Family Cookbook was a direct infringement on the trademarked brand Roloff Farms. They argued that the name Roloff has become a commercial entity synonymous with the pumpkin patch and the television production, and that Amy, by using it to sell independent merchandise, was creating market confusion. But that was just the opening salvo. The truly twisted part, the part that confirms the lasagna lawsuit theory, was buried on page 4. The legal team argued that the specific recipes featured in the book, including the famous lasagna, the meatloaf, and the peach cobbler, were intellectual property of the corporation. Their reasoning is a masterclass in corporate gaslighting. They claimed that because these specific dishes were prepared on camera, featured in episodes, and used in promotional materials for the show over the last 15 years, they were no longer family meals. They were content. They were assets developed during Amy's tenure as an employee of the production. Therefore, the corporation laid claim to the rights. The letter reportedly demanded that Amy either pay a licensing fee of 25% of all gross sales to Caryn and Matt's estate, or remove the recipes entirely. Imagine the devastation. Amy was being told that she didn't own her own dinner. She was being told that the memories she created for her children were actually just work products owned by her ex-husband's company. Sources close to Amy say she was initially paralyzed by the shock. It felt like a betrayal that went deeper than the divorce. It was an attempt to rewrite history, to say that the farm was the creator of everything good in their lives, and Amy was just a vessel. This is the villain's envy in its purest form. If Caryn couldn't be the mother who cooked those meals, she would make sure she was the one who got paid for them. For 48 hours, the project hung in the balance. The publisher was nervous. The legal threat was substantial enough that it could have tied the book up in court for years, effectively killing the launch. Amy was reportedly ready to give up. She didn't want to fight. She just wanted to share her love of cooking. The psychological warfare was working. Matt and Caryn had successfully made her feel small, powerless, and derivative. But they underestimated the X factor in Amy's life, Chris Merrick. This is where the story pivots from a tragedy to a detective thriller. Chris isn't intimidated by the Roloff farm machine. He's a real estate agent. He knows contracts, and he knows when someone is bluffing. We are hearing that Chris sat down, read the letter, and spotted the flaw in their logic immediately. The farm's claim rested on the idea that the recipes were developed during the show's filming. If Amy could prove that these recipes existed before the cameras started rolling, before the farm was even a corporation, then their entire case would crumble. The investigation began. It wasn't a legal discovery process. It was a scavenger hunt through the past. Amy and Chris went into the attic. They started digging through dusty boxes that hadn't been opened since the move. We are talking about decades of history packed away in cardboard. They were looking for a needle in a haystack. They needed proof that the lasagna wasn't a Roloff Farm asset, but an Amy Knight legacy. The clock was ticking. The lawyers needed a response within 72 hours or they would file for an injunction to stop the printing press. The tension in that house must have been unbearable. They went through photo albums, looking for pictures of the dishes from the early 90s. They looked through old diaries. But the breakthrough finally came from a small, battered tin box that Amy had kept from her childhood. This is the moment that changes the entire trajectory of the war. Inside that tin were handwritten recipe cards, yellowed with age, covered in grease spots and flour dust, the hallmarks of a working kitchen. Chris Merrick found it, a single index card. On it, in unmistakable cursive script, was the recipe for the Roloff lasagna. But it wasn't titled that. It was titled Mom's Sunday Special. And the date? There, in the corner, written in faded blue ink, October 1975. The card was written by Amy's mother, long before Amy had ever met Matt Roloff, long before the farm was purchased, and decades before a camera crew ever set foot in Oregon. This piece of paper was a smoking gun. It proved definitively that the intellectual property was personal, hereditary, and predated the existence of Roloff Farms. The recipe didn't belong to the corporation. It belonged to Amy's bloodline. They found more, too. They found the peach cobbler recipe in a community cookbook from Amy's hometown in Michigan, dated 1982, with her name listed as a contributor under her maiden name. The narrative that Caryn and Matt were spinning, that the farm made the food famous, was objectively false. The food made the farm feel like a home. The dynamic had flipped. Amy wasn't stealing from the farm was trying to steal from Amy's heritage. The realization reportedly lit a fire under Amy. The sadness vanished, replaced by a righteous anger. She had the evidence. She had the truth. And now she had a weapon to strike back at the greedy demands coming from the big house. Chris and Amy immediately scanned the documents. They didn't just send them to their lawyer. They prepared to drop a nuclear bomb on Matt's legal team. This wasn't just about winning a lawsuit anymore. It was about exposing the pettiness of the claim. The investigation phase proved that Matt and Caryn were operating on bluff and intimidation, banking on the fact that Amy wouldn't have the receipts. But she did. As we move toward the final showdown, you have to appreciate the irony. Caryn's attempt to secure a licensing fee led to the discovery of documents that proved she had absolutely no right to the family's traditions. The lasagna lawsuit was about to blow up in their faces. In the final part of this report, we will reveal exactly what happened when Amy's lawyer slapped that 1975 recipe card onto the negotiation table. We will cover the judge's reaction, the humiliating withdrawal of the claim, and how Amy used this victory to add a secret, shady dedication in her book that you definitely missed. This is the victory lap you've been waiting for. The day of the settlement conference was reportedly colder than a bleak Oregon winter. We have heard from sources familiar with the proceedings that Matt and his legal team entered the room looking confident, perhaps even smug. They believed they held all the cards. In their minds, they were the corporate juggernaut, and Amy was just a former employee trying to monetize their brand. They expected her to fold. They expected a check. But they had no idea that Chris and Amy were walking in with a time capsule that would blow their entire case out of the water. When the moment came, it wasn't a shout, it was a whisper. Amy's lawyer allegedly didn't argue. He didn't make a speech. He simply slid a single photocopy of that 1975 recipe card across the mahogany table. He placed it right in front of Matt. "Exhibit A," he reportedly said. The original lasagna recipe, dated 15 years before Roloff Farms was incorporated and 10 years before you two even met. The silence that followed was described as deafening. The entire legal argument that these recipes were the work product of the show collapsed in a single second. You cannot claim corporate ownership over a family heirloom that predates the corporation itself. It was the legal equivalent of a checkmate. We are hearing that Matt's face went pale. He isn't a stupid man. He knows business. In that instant, he realized he had been led down a path of greed by bad advice. He realized that if this went to a judge, he wouldn't just lose, he would be publicly humiliated. The timeline didn't lie. The handwriting didn't lie. The mediator allegedly struggled to suppress a laugh. The claim was frivolous, it was petty, and now it was dead. The lawyers for the farm reportedly asked for a recess, scrambling to save face. But there was no saving it. The intellectual property war was over before the first shot was truly fired. They withdrew the cease and desist demand immediately. There would be no licensing fee. There would be no review of her content. Amy retained 100% of the rights to her name, her history, and her food. But Amy didn't just walk away with a legal win. She walked away with the last laugh. And this is where the story gets even juicier for those of us paying close attention. The book went to print, but not before Amy reportedly made a last-minute addition. If you open the Roloff family cookbook and turn to the dedication page, read it very carefully. On the surface, it looks sweet. But knowing what we know now about the lawsuit, it is a masterclass in throwing shade. The dedication reads, "To the strong women who came before me, whose traditions can never be bought, borrowed, or stolen, and to the future, which belongs to those who create, not those who simply manage." Boom. Can never be bought. Those who simply manage. It is a direct, blistering indictment of Caryn and Matt's attempt to commodify her memories. It is Amy asserting that she is the creator, and they are just the managers of a fading empire. She didn't have to say Caryn's name for everyone to know exactly who she was talking about. It was elegant, it was permanent, and it is now printed in thousands of copies sitting in kitchens all across America. The fallout was instantaneous. When the news of the attempted lawsuit leaked, likely from someone inside the publishing house, it didn't hurt Amy's sales, it exploded them. This is the Streisand effect in action. By trying to ban the cookbook, Caryn inadvertently created the biggest marketing campaign Amy could have ever asked for. Fans were outraged. The idea that Cha-Cha tried to sue over a lasagna recipe rallied the entire fan base to Amy's side. We watched the Amazon rankings. The book shot to #1 in its category overnight. Comments flooded in, not just reviewing the food, but supporting Amy's independence. "Bought this just to annoy Matt," one review read. "The taste of freedom is the best ingredient," said another. The controversy turned a simple collection of recipes into a symbol of resistance against a controlling ex. Meanwhile, back at the farm, the mood is reportedly grim. The plan backfired spectacularly. Not only did they fail to get a cut of the profits, but they also cemented their reputation as the villains of the story. Caryn is allegedly furious, blaming the lawyers for not finding a better loophole, while Matt is left doing damage control, trying to post happy photos of the grandkids to distract from the fact that he tried to sue their grandmother. This victory proves one thing. Amy Roloff is no longer the victim. She played the long game, she kept her receipts, and she stood her ground against a corporate machine designed to crush her. She protected her legacy. The cookbook ban failed, and instead, we got a bestseller. It serves as a stark warning to anyone trying to mess with a woman who has kept a diary since 1975. She has the proof, and she is not afraid to use it. So, where do we go from here? The farm is still struggling, the tension is higher than ever, and we have a feeling this is just round one of a new, more aggressive era of little people, big world. But for now, the lasagna belongs to Amy. They tried to take her memories, they tried to take her name, but they forgot that you can't sue someone for being authentic. If you are Team Amy in this battle, if you believe that grandmothers own their recipes and not corporations, then you need to make your voice heard right now. If you are buying Amy's book just to spite Caryn, hit that like button. Let's send a message loud and clear to Roloff Farms that we see what they are doing. Let's get this video to 5,000 likes for Team Amy. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell because we have more files on the farm sale saga that we are currently verifying, and you do not want to miss what we found. Stay tuned.